and thank you so much for joining the information session here. Um, uh, we are going to be recording this information session, and I will post it on the City of Milwaukee Interim Plaza page after the session so that anyone can access it who wasn't able to join today. And I'll just start and say my name is Danya Littlefield, Senior Transportation with the City of Milwaukee Department of Public Works, also managing the Interim Plaza program. And I'll be going through our slides today, a lot of content about the program, what's changed since last year, a little background on it, and then more information about how to apply for the grant. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Marissa Meyer, also a senior transportation planner with the City of Milwaukee. Marissa will be monitoring the chat and also letting people in. Thank you, Marissa, and muting you if you don't mute yourself, just to minimize background noise. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. Just a couple of housekeeping things and our agenda. So we'll be going over what is an interim plaza. Again, as I mentioned, background and history, how to, what's new this year, a little bit of information about the pre-application portion of the process, the application timeline and evaluation criteria. Just a little note here that that we decided to update the evaluation criteria since we posted this opportunity last week or 2 weeks ago now. It is a very slight change, and I will show you the new table, or it's a pretty slight change. I'll show you the new table, and then if you could re-download, if you saved a copy of the grant opportunity, I encourage you to re-download that so that you have the new table, and we'll go over that later. And then there'll be time for questions. Another reminder, we're recording this session. Please stay muted unless you're speaking and asking a question. And to ask a question, you can raise your hand through Teams or type in the chat. All right. So first, what is an interim plaza? An interim plaza is it's a space for people to gather. It's created using excess street space. We do have a lot of streets in Milwaukee that are underused, and so this program and grant opportunity allow community organizations, residents to create vibrant gathering spaces with streets. You can see in the GIF here, this is a kind of an unused portion of the street between City Hall and the Zeidler building where the Department of Public Works is, right downtown on Market Street. And in the GIF, we're adding concrete barriers. There's some planters on the other end, paint on the street, and then some tables and people to make it a fun plaza. So usually plazas through this program are formed using relatively low-cost materials that can be removed, and that's a crucial part, is that the materials are removable. So a lot of, we would expect them to be made from things like paint, as we mentioned, planters, tables and chairs, but that's not the only thing that could go into a plaza, and I'll show you some creative examples of other things that have been added to plazas. Usually through the City of Milwaukee's Interim Plaza program, the street is completely closed to vehicle traffic, either seasonally or more typically year-round. And one key aspect to this program is that the plazas are open to the public. They're not associated with any particular business. They become public space, accessible for everyone and safe for pedestrians. So here's a few different examples of where an interim plaza could be located. And so on the far left, we see an example of repurposing an entire block. In this case, it's a block that has kind of a diagonal street, creating kind of a short block here. And so that is one place where an interim plaza could be located. Repurposing a portion of an underutilized street, maybe up until an alleyway or something like that. That could be a plaza location. We'll give you a few more examples aside from these diagrams as well. Filling in excess lanes, maybe area on the street that is not used as much. Maybe that you have an area in your neighborhood or community with a lot of unused parking, and it would be better used as open community space. That would be an example of a plaza location. Both of these examples also show squaring a rounded corner. So some of our streets in Milwaukee have these really kind of wide turn angles here when traffic would easily be able to flow at kind of a more right angle. That a plaza could be added to kind of create that traffic pattern. And then closing a right turn slip lane. So we will see an example of this later, but we have slip lanes all around our city that are kind of allow quick and easy vehicle flow from one street to another. Often they can be closed and make a safer and more pedestrian friendly environment. And those would be also a good place for a plaza. So what is not an interim plaza? Especially for the purposes of this program for the city of Milwaukee, vacant lots are not eligible to be interim plazas. And here's an example of one, through this program, we're really focused on the streets and making new accessible, vibrant places on the streets. Vacant lots are used for, although they seem like they might be a great place for a plaza, and there are certainly many uses that vacant lots could have. That's not the intent of this program, is to kind of to come up with a new use and reprogram those vacant lots. Another thing that an interim plaza is not is a private space, for example, for serving food. This would be kind of more of a parklet structure outside of a business where it's associated with that particular business, and it is explicitly for serving food. We have another program at the city of Milwaukee that's more tailored towards that type of use. This, as I mentioned, interim plazas are open to everyone, and that's part of what makes them special. And then an interim plaza through this program is not a major street shutdown. By this, we mean multiple blocks being shut down in a permanent or seasonal way. That's not the intent of this program either, although potentially a whole block could be shut down. So this is something just to be aware, is that major street shutdowns are not the intent. It doesn't mean that a larger interim plaza wouldn't be considered. So we can talk about that as well. Some background about this program. So in 2020, the DPW and the city of Milwaukee started a program called Active Streets for Business that allowed the streets to be used as kind of open seating, kind of allowing people to be outside and social distance during kind of early days of the pandemic, and that program persists. And then kind of following that, and because of in collaboration between the Department of Public Works and the Department of City Development at the city, the Gathering Places feasibility study was completed in 2022, pointing out kind of different types of community gathering spaces around Milwaukee. One recommendation from that program was to develop a program like the Interim Plaza program. And so when that program was approved, DPW also released the first grant program in order to make interim plazas more accessible to our neighborhoods and community members all over the city. So that first grant program resulted in 3 interim plazas at 16th and Forest Home, led by Muskego Way Forward. You can see a small photo here, and we'll look at a bigger one soon. Ivanhoe Plaza, led by the Eastside Bid. You can see this photo here. And then still in construction, but coming soon, a plaza at Butterfly Park, led by Metcalf Park Community Bridges. And so now we're here at the 2024 second year of the Interim Plaza Grant Program, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about that. But first, we'll just look at an example of one of the plazas made through last year's, through the 2023 Interim Plaza Grant. So this is the plaza in the slip lane at 16th and Forest Home, led by Muskego Way Forward. I know we have some of those wonderful people on the call, so thank you for joining us. I just wanted to point out some awesome parts of this plaza. Again, this is in a slip lane, so you can tell here this is kind of a pork chop island with a bus stop on it. And this used to be for vehicles making a right-hand turn here. But now that it's closed, it's a space for pedestrians and people to gather. Some key elements: this beautiful mural, paint the pavement project within the plaza space. This is custom built furniture made by the Youth Build group with that assisted with this, and then planters to block any traffic from coming in the wrong way, and these vibrant planters on the Pork Chop Island. And then this is kind of, you can't see one here, but there's some interactive musical instruments also around this plaza, providing some fun things for people to do while they're there. Okay. So diving into some of the details, the 2024 grant program overview, and I'll go through a little bit of how it's different from last year's grant program. So we're expecting to fund 3 interim plaza grants, up to $30,000 each. So we have a 2-part application. Potential plaza locations are reviewed during the pre-application phase, and we'll get more into that in a second. All funded plazas will also go through, after the pre-application and application, you'll also go through a permit review process. Hopefully by that point, we will have worked out a lot, any details that are needed, and that should be fairly straightforward. But just so you're aware that all of those steps will have to happen. We'll have more about that in a second as well. And then new for 2024, applications will be accepted both with and without a completed site plan. And this is because we heard, with last year's grant program, a site plan was required to be included with every application. And it takes some technical skills to create a site plan that is to scale. And we wanted to make sure that organizations, community groups that wanted to make a plaza but needed some time and assistance in creating a site plan could still benefit from this grant opportunity. So if you are considering applying without a site plan completed, then your final award would include as a part of it an initial design and community engagement phase that could include technical support either from our staff here or from a consultant designer. And then also that would allow some additional time for community engagement activity to inform that site plan. If you already have a site plan in hand that you think will meet all of the guidelines of the Plaza program, then that first phase could be shortened or eliminated. Any questions about this change to the program? Just going to pause here for a second. Okay, hearing none, I'll keep going. Okay, so I'm actually going to switch and show you all the Plaza program webpage. If you haven't seen this already, please check it out. I will also mention we just changed our website in the infrastructure part of the Department of Public Works. So make sure you find it. Old links you might have might no longer be working. Although the ones in all of our grant material and emails, they should point to this page. So this page has a few different things on it that you'll find useful. First, it has a link to the 2024 grant program overview. Looks like this. It has a lot of detailed information about, how to apply and what the grant opportunity is that is active now. This page also has a link to the pre-application for the grant program, and we'll go over that in a second as well. The application timeline, this might also be where you got the link for this information session, and then a link to the program guidelines themselves. And I'll just mention right here, like the anyone can apply to the Interim Plaza program. This grant opportunity is not the only way to make a plaza. So if someone doesn't need funding or doesn't want funding for whatever reason, anyone could always apply to create an interim plaza. And so that's why the program guidelines themselves are separate from the grant opportunity. Okay. So going back to the grant process here. So first, everyone will be asked to fill out a grant pre-application if you're interested in this grant. Then once your location is reviewed and approved, you would be invited to fill out the grant application. Once grant awards are announced, if you applied with a site plan completed, your next step would be to move towards the Plaza permit application. If you applied without a site plan, your first step of the grant is to work on the site plan, and that would be part of the grant process. And so you do that before your permit application was submitted. Then you'd fill out that Plaza permit application and build the plaza. So before you apply, and as you're filling out the pre-application, we just want to talk through some of the like most important parts of that process. First, reviewing the Plaza program guidelines themselves is really important. That was kind of that third link that I showed you on the Interim Plaza page, because if you're awarded for a grant, you must apply for that permit. So you want to make sure that you have an idea of what's going to be required of that permit process. And your interim plaza must meet all those requirements in the program guidelines by the time a permit is issued. As I said, the pre-application and application process allows us to kind of understand some of things that might need to be changed before those permit requirements would be met, and kind of communicate with you about that ahead of time. The pre-application is due on September 6th, so in about a week and a half, a little over a week and a half. It's a short application. I'll go over it right after this slide. It provides us with an opportunity to review that plaza location. And it does require submitting a site location map to the plazas at Milwaukee.gov email address. So let me show you the pre-application if you haven't looked at it yet. So here it is. It's a Microsoft form. It has a place for your name and your organization, a little bit of just contact information. Asks you a question about whether you think you're going to be submitting a site plan with your application or not. You can also say that you're not sure yet if you're still thinking about whether you'll be able to complete one by the application date. A little bit of information about adjacent properties and any description of discussions that you've had with the adjacent property owners. It also asks you to confirm that you've read those interim plaza guidelines, so pointing you back to that guideline document. And then the most important part truly is a map of your interim plaza location. I'll show you an example of that. Because there's no way to upload a file through Microsoft Forms, we're going to ask that you email us that at plazas@milwaukee.gov, as I mentioned. And then in the pre-application here, just put the date either that you emailed or you're intending to email that plan. Okay, so here is an example of a map that you would need to include and send to plazas@milwaukee.gov with your pre-application. This one, I believe, was made in PowerPoint, so you don't have to have, and you could also use Google Slides or free software to make this map, or a map like this. So you could use a background image maybe from Google Maps, label in PowerPoint or Google Slides or whatever software you might have accessible to you, label the streets around your plaza location, highlight your plaza location. In this case, this is City Hall, this is the Zeidler Building, and 809 Broadway, these city buildings, and this is the proposed plaza location here highlighted in yellow, Market Street Plaza. And then a written description of that location. So on North Market Street, starting at East Wells and going half a block north to the entrance of the parking garage. This is the type of map we're looking for in that pre-application step. Very simple, but it allows us it gives a lot of information about where you're proposing the plaza will be. So once we receive your pre-application and approve the proposed location of the plaza that you will be applying for, you would be invited you'd receive a link to the full application and be invited to fill that out. You can preview the applications, the full application questions in the grant overview document on the Interim Plaza's webpage so that you can prep some of your answers for that if you'd like to work ahead. And that application is due September 20th. Here's an example of a final site plan. So as I mentioned, you are not required to submit a final site plan with your application, but if you choose to, or just so you have a sense of what you'd be working towards in that first kind of design and community engagement phase, if you were to receive a grant, you would be working towards a site plan with that's drawn to scale with distances and dimensions included for the items in your plaza. You would be labeling street names, labeling, any alleys, and identifying businesses and addresses around the plaza. You'd be noting that, curb ramps cannot be blocked, so your site plan would show that. And ADA accessible kind of pathways through the plaza would be required, especially to access ADA accessible tables and furniture. And so that would also be kind of called out in the plan. A final site plan would ideally also include links to the specific products that you're using, like what tables would you order, what planters would you order, whenever possible. And we do recommend visiting the location in person to kind of measure it out in real time. So again, this is an option to apply with a site plan, but not necessary to submit your application if you prefer to have a community design and engagement phase as part of your award. And here's our reminder. The application will also ask you to create a budget or like an estimated budget for what you think your plaza will cost. And I did a kind of quick estimate for what an interim plaza might cost, a small one. We have some barricades, 4 of them, concrete planters, 4 of those. Those are actually quite expensive per, the big planters and barricades can be kind of expensive items. Picnic tables, both ADA accessible and the non-ADA accessible ones, 4 total tables. And then I included for this budget $800 in delivery costs, just a very general estimate. I will say that one thing that we learned from last year's Interim Plazas is that the cost to have large items delivered is substantial. So I recommend, finding the products that you are interested in and going through the kind of ordering process until you can estimate what those delivery costs would be to make sure that you're building that into your budget. $800 is just like an estimate based on what I've heard from others, but it may vary widely based on your products that you're thinking about. The other kind of potentially unexpected cost would be installation services for those planters and barriers. They're often very heavy and cumbersome to move. You may need access to a forklift and people to help you move those. So recommend budgeting for that as well and potentially reaching out to services who might be able to provide that and asking for an estimate of what that would cost. In this plaza, I also budgeted for some paint that would go on the street, 20 gallons of it. And also in this one, I included a kind of design and installation fee for a street mural through the Paint the Pavement program. I put $3,000 on there for that service, but I think that also could be kind of higher or lower depending on, who you are working with or if you work with someone who might be doing this. And then I also have just some other ideas here. Maybe I want some change to secure the tables to one of the barriers so that they are kind of stay in place. Do not forget to budget for plants and soil for the planters themselves. I budgeted $50 per planter, which might be kind of high, but would probably allow for some really beautiful plantings. And then I also budgeted $1,000 for an opening celebration for this plaza. So total for this plaza that I put together is 18,000. I recommend going through this process of putting together a budget and being realistic about how much time you think it might take your staff to do this, and then what actually you might spend money on. You might find that the plaza you envision doesn't cost $30,000. And I think that's a valuable thing to know. Or you might find that you would need all of the $30,000 to make it possible. I want to go through also the application evaluation criteria. And so this is something that I want to note that we did update. And I mentioned this before. So if you go right now to the Interim Plaza page and you pull down the grant opportunity, you will see these updated evaluation criteria. They're very similar to last week's criteria and similar to the ones we posted before, but very slightly different. So I'll just talk about them briefly here. So these first three criteria have to do with the location of your proposed plaza. So the first is that they would be located in an NRSA, or a NERSA, some people call this, stands for a Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy area. And this is an area defined at the federal level by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. And these areas have at least 70% low and moderate income residents. So you can find in the overview a map of where this is. I'll pull it up now. Oops, hopefully. There we go. So these are the NERSA areas of the city, again, with 70% or more low or moderate income residents. And because the goal of this grant is to make sure the Interim Plaza program is accessible to people no matter where they live in the city, that is why that is part of our evaluation criteria for this grant. Going back here, we also have some possible points for locating adjacent or near to a commercial corridor, school, park, or other pedestrian-oriented use, kind of building on and building out a kind of pedestrian-friendly space in Milwaukee, and then located adjacent to a high injury network street. We have another map linked here that will show us what this is, and this is based on historical crash data for Milwaukee. These are the streets that have the kind of like the highest injury, highest number of injuries in the city. So because one of the goals of this is to create safe spaces for people to walk and spend time, one of our evaluation criteria is kind of creating spaces that are located near this network of high injury streets. These next 15 points are about your description, reason, and goals for your plaza. So, and with the goal that these plazas are serving as community gathering spaces. So this is really about your vision for the space. And then these last 15 points here are kind of more about your organization and community. What's the feasibility of your budget? Do we think that you've put some thought into being kind of realistic about what it will take to build your plaza? How do you talk about kind of maintaining and your ability to construct it? How is that all going to take place? So a sense of kind of capacity to do what is frankly a lot of work to build an interim plaza, and I definitely want to emphasize that. And then also demonstrated community support for an interim plaza. So that is part of it as well. And there are some prompts throughout this process to attach, letters of support from nearby neighbors, residents, business owners. Okay. Timeline for the grants. The pre-application opened last a week and a half ago. and is due, information session is today, right now. The pre-application is due on September 6th, as I've mentioned. We're asking that you complete it by 4 p.m. The sooner you complete the pre-application, remember that's the one that includes the map of your proposed location only, not the site plan, because the site plan is optional and will be due at a later date. But the map of where the location of your plaza is required for that pre-application. So then, after your pre-application is submitted and your location is approved, the application will be due on September 20th. And we expect to be able to notify awardees around October 4th. Couple other tips and reminders, and I'll open it up to any questions. Please remember to review the guidelines for the Interim Plaza program overall, as well as the grant opportunity requirements and guidelines. Ask any questions you have about Interim Plazas early so we can make sure we're communicating well and help you realize your vision. Please also consider who will deliver and install heavy items and how they're going to be placed and moved around the site. It is a lot of work to move heavy things on the streets once you have an approved permit to do so. You may likely need a forklift and a forklift operator. That's just one idea of the type of service you might need to do this. And please include it in your budget and kind of your idea for what the process of building this will look like. If your design includes planters, please don't forget to budget for the plants themselves and think about how you're going to keep those plants alive and watered. Consider the staff time and volunteer time needed to order all of the items for your plaza, coordinate their installation. It can be a lot of work to do that as well, and want to make sure that you're thinking about that as you apply for this program and envision your space. And then again, the cost of ongoing plaza maintenance and programming is not really included in the plaza grant. So that is just something also to keep in mind and be realistic about. I mentioned we redid our website recently here in infrastructure within DPW. So these links are a little bit funky, but think about the other permits you might need for your plaza. If you're hoping to paint the street as part of your plaza, you will need another permit for that as well, called a paint the pavement permit. It's located here. I can post these slides also, but you can find the new paint the pavement page through the infrastructure webpage at DPW if you knew where it was before. And then a special event permit if you're hoping to program your plaza in the future. Often special event permits will be needed, and that can be found here. Okay, that is the end of our content. I'm going to pause here, and for any questions that those on the line may have, remember here's the page, and this does work for the new Interim Plaza program page. And again, my name is Danya Littlefield. You can reach me here with my email address and my cell phone number if you have any questions, and I encourage you to reach out early. But we'll pause here and open this up for any questions from those on the call. Hi, Barb, go for it. Oh,
There we go. Sorry, so I'm having to. So how about the timeline on the description of interim plaza? At what point might it be changed or need to be taken down? Types of thought needs to be put in.
great question. So I had a little bit of trouble hearing you, so I'm just going to repeat it. The question is, what does interim mean? That's why I just realized too. So what does interim mean? When do the plazas need to be taken down? Something, and that was a miss by me for not mentioning that. So although the title of this program is Interim Plazas, they're designed to be able to be removed. There is no end date for interim plaza installation, like as a part of this process. They are, it's an annual permit that is renewable. If there was a need to take the plaza down for some reason, some examples could be full road, full road reconstruction when where your plaza is put in. That would, I mean, it, fingers crossed, we would be able to communicate about that ahead of time, and it would be something that we were kind of like all aware of as it was upcoming, and we would understand that that meant either removing the plaza for a short time and putting it back, or maybe it is an opportunity to rethink that space in general if there was something like that. If there was major utility work that needed to happen as well, that would require removing the plaza. Barring something like that, there is no end date required for the permit. You are also not required to remove it in the winter. And that is a key. There's a couple questions about seasonality, I believe, in the application process. If you want to keep the plaza, the barriers up, and I recommend doing this because moving the heavy things that a plaza usually has as part of it, like barriers and concrete planters, is expensive and time consuming, as I've mentioned a few times. It is not required that you do that in the winter. We will have to talk about snow removal and a bit of a plan that we would have on file with DPW for what's going to happen with snow removal to make sure it's still an accessible space. But yeah, does that answer your question? Thank you so much for asking that, Barb. Any other questions?
Danya, I have a question about location. I know that generally it's meant for like a streetscape. If there was something like a parking lot, right off of the street, or like next to a park that could become an extension of the park, would that qualify?
That is a good question. Is it public parking lot that you're thinking of? Maybe. I would say let's chat if you have a specific something in mind. In general, the program is designed for like street and public right-of-way locations only, and not kind of like parcels that might be adjacent. I think that we should make sure we're not limiting ourselves too much in the definition. Like I would like to make sure that we look at the specific example that you're thinking about to make sure we don't that I don't say something that limits the possibilities for what this program can do unnecessarily. So let's chat about a specific example like that. And if you yourself, if anyone else on this call has a location in mind that isn't exactly like one that I described, please let's be in touch about it to make sure that we can't make it work within this program.
Thank you.
Kate, I see you have a question. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks. For the design and community engagement phase, did you say that the applicant is responsible for doing the community engagement?
Yeah, it would be a requirement for like at least one kind of community engagement activity session by the applicant to get some community buy-in and ideas about site, like the design of the site plan.
And what if after that community engagement, the residents or neighbors think that they don't want the plaza?
That's a tough one.
Okay. You don't have to have an answer right now.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I think in an ideal world, you would have, because part of the application criteria is like demonstrated support for a plaza in general, there would be a sense that a plaza was desired generally by residents and neighbors before an application took place, and that the community engagement during that phase is about what's in the plaza and not should there be a plaza.
Gotcha.
But if there's also like a ton of pushback that happens during that like kind of phase, I guess we would work it out and maybe yeah, I mean, I will say like no grant money has to be used if an organization who is awarded, needs to not carry through with Plaza design and installation. You wouldn't be required to if there's a lot of community opposition.
Gotcha. And that just made me think of another question. Can any of the grant funding be used for that community engagement event?
Yeah, what I'm anticipating is that, and I don't really right now, it's going to be hard for me to answer super specifically because I don't know the demand for this yet for this type of kind of community design and engagement phase since it's new. So, but what I'm anticipating is that the total grant amount available for Plaza construction would likely be a little bit lower because we would be using some of that to fund the technical support, but there would be some money available in that phase for the community organization or the applicant to fund that community engagement. So if that makes sense. Okay, good.
Yep. Thank you.
Great, Elizabeth, go for it.
Hi, I'm sorry if I missed this. When somebody's awarded, then the funds, when do they first receive the funds to purchase or for anything regarding the plaza?
Yes, so after in the largest amount of the funds would be needed to purchase things that would go in the street, as you're implying. After a permit is issued to construct a plaza, I believe what we did last year is there was some kind of money provided upfront from the grant so that purchases could be made, on a non-reimbursement basis. So initial kind of like deposit of the grant, and then the rest of the funds upon close of grant. So there's a little bit of a gap where but that's a good question, and I'm not sure if it needs to be like that. That's my estimate now of what we would do is kind of match what happened in the past. Yeah, so I'll say that is our plan for now. And if we make any change, it would be hopefully better for applicants rather than I don't think we'd move to something that it was like, that was like more a reimbursement than that. Others who might know though, does that match your understanding, thinking Allison and Kate, who are aware of how the funding worked, because I just don't have that answer off the top of my head about whether I think the first half was given up front and then the rest reimbursable after.
Yeah, Kate maybe remembers better than I do that. I think that I sent receipts in chunks too. So like, I don't remember exactly, but we definitely did get one up front and then reimburse the rest of it.
Yeah, that's a good question though. I can also like go through, make sure I totally have down what happened last time, and then even issue like a little additional information so that in case people want to answer that question, or follow up with this group with the answer to that question. Kate, anything to add?
Yes. Yeah. It was 25% up front, but you do have to provide the receipts that show that amount was spent by like the end of the calendar year. Danya, I can follow up with you. I think there might be possibility to change that to make it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. If we can change it to make it better for community organizations who are, it's a lot of money to put up before getting a reimbursement. So we'll strive to make it better always. Any other question? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say thank you. It's very helpful.
Awesome. You're welcome. Cool. Well, you know where to reach me if you have more questions, and that will also give me more time to track down answers for any stumpers. So please email, call or text. This cell phone number also is available. And yeah, hope to get your pre-applications and really hope that we can together create some really awesome new spaces around Milwaukee. So thank you so much. And I will stop the recording now, hopefully.